Hello, beautiful soul. In this video, I want to talk about how to alchemize painful emotional experiences. So we're not just surviving through things, we're not just moving through something in order to get back to where we were prior to that event happening. We're using painful emotional experiences as a catalyst for personal transformation and growth, where we can take the wisdom out of experiences, we can take the clarity that comes from certain experiences and allow these experiences to provide us with personal power in our lives moving forward. So it's about moving through the experience in a way that acknowledges and integrates the experience at a deep level within us, so that we can gain the gifts out of it. There's always a gift. And I've experienced a number of tragedies in my life. I've lost a number of people who passed away very suddenly. I've experienced work-related burnout, where my health suffered, my mental health, physical health, and I had to take a year off to recover. I've experienced a number of heartbreaks. I've experienced childhood trauma. I've experienced the trauma that comes with undiagnosed neurodivergence. I'm a late diagnosed neurodivergent person. Like, all of these experiences on their own would be a challenge, but I found a way to not only move through these experiences, but also take the wisdom from them. And so these experiences that I wouldn't wish upon anyone are some of the things that I hold the greatest amount of gratitude for now that I've moved through them, now that I'm on the other side of this alchemical process, this transmutation process. I can see that and I can acknowledge that. And the first step is always having that emotional awareness, sitting with ourselves, being with ourselves, acknowledging our pain, acknowledging where we're suffering, allowing space to feel things, and supporting ourselves to feel things without judgment, creating space to feel the emotions. That's the first step. It's really important. Something I had always thought was, the goal is to get through this thing and get back to what I was doing before in the shortest amount of time possible. And so that actually resulted in me emotionally avoiding, suppressing my emotions, not creating space for them. So now I've learned that to truly alchemize any painful emotional experience, we have to actually make space to feel those things, to feel the emotions. If we don't feel it, we can't heal it. And that's a real thing. Radically accepting our reality, our situation, radical acceptance is another thing. So I used to get stuck in kind of denying my situation, wishing it wasn't true, wishing things were different. But if we're going to truly alchemize painful emotional experiences, we need to be accepting of where we're at. This may be unjust, this may be really unfair. And so we're not resisting reality and we're not resisting emotions. And then once we're in that space of non-resistance and we're able to regulate our emotions, so I think grounding techniques can be really helpful for this, mindfulness practices, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding techniques really helpful when we're experiencing big emotions. And once we're in a place of emotional regulation, we can start to make inquiries about our situation. So it's not about saying, why me? This is so unfair, which it may be, which it probably is. A lot of things in life are unfair and we're allowed to acknowledge that. But the self-inquiry is around the deeper reasons for things. So looking at why we ended up where we ended up. And sometimes we played no part in it. It was just a super unfair, unjust situation that we played no part in, and we acknowledge that, and then we move forward the best way we can, take any learnings from the experience or any gifts out of that experience. Even unjust and unfair things have a gift. It's about identifying that. But sometimes during this exploration process, we're able to uncover negative beliefs or thoughts or patterns that led us to that thing. So for me, burnout is a really good example of this. There was so many deeper reasons for that burnout. There was undiagnosed neurodivergence. There was childhood trauma and issues as a result of that I hadn't acknowledged or dealt with. There was people pleasing. There was deep abandonment wounds and rejection wounds and things like this. Schemas, maladaptive schemas from childhood that I wasn't aware of or that I hadn't addressed properly, that led to the behaviors and attracting the dynamics that I did that resulted in burnout. The overcompensation, the overworking, the having to prove myself. All of these things stemmed from a deeper reason. So the self-exploration part is really important. Getting really vulnerable with ourselves. And I think it's really hard to identify these things as well. So engaging with educational material, expanding our knowledge. It was really helpful for me to have a therapist. It was really helpful for me to do journaling practices, to ask those deeper questions. What led to this? I think this was where the actual healing began. It was in this state of exploration, in this state of self-inquiry, asking the deeper questions, getting really vulnerable with myself, facing the facts, facing things like there might be something else going on that hasn't been identified. And they were challenging things to face. But being able to express and discuss with my therapist these things was the most helpful thing. And having someone with knowledge and understanding reflecting these things back to me was also very helpful. Someone to validate my experience or my thoughts or where my thinking was. Someone to say, actually, yeah, neurodivergence might apply to you, or your behavior probably does stem from this thing, and let's do therapy, or let's do schema therapy, or let's look into that further. I don't think schema therapy is necessarily required for everyone. Whatever tools are available, things like shadow work, meditations, journaling practices, somatic healing practices. I think in this exploration phase, looking into these things, exploring, learning, understanding was the most helpful thing. Understanding what the possibilities were, understanding how everything linked together, understanding what kinds of childhood patterning creates behaviors like people pleasing, like not feeling comfortable to express. Like, why was I attracting people dynamics, things like this, that weren't respectful of me, that didn't validate my emotions, that didn't respect my needs or my boundaries? And then once we've identified the patterns, it's important to start that work in terms of releasing the beliefs, the negative patterns, letting go of the things, people, places, dynamics that aren't supportive of us, that aren't helping us grow and evolve, that aren't genuinely a reciprocal give and take dynamic in our lives. Letting go of those things is a really important next step. And so we're also forgiving in this step as well. We're forgiving ourselves. We're forgiving ourselves for abandoning ourselves. We're forgiving ourselves for abandoning our vulnerable child, our inner child, and their needs. We're forgiving other people who have wronged us. They're probably coming from some emotional patterns as well. They're probably acting in a way that they're not conscious of too. And it's about forgiving that. And it's not about condoning their behavior or accepting their behavior or accepting them back in our lives. It's about letting go of the emotion that's attached to the thing that happened, so that we can move forward with peace, without holding a grudge, without holding on to that pain. It's about letting go of the version of ourselves who tolerated poor behavior, So once we've released the things that no longer serve us, we've let go of people, places, things, beliefs, old versions of ourselves, the pain attached to the thing that happened, then we look at the next step, which is the lesson. We're allowing transformation to occur. And there's always a lesson that we can take from things, even unjust things that happen to us that we couldn't have expected and we played no part in really. That could be a lesson in understanding what really matters in life. So when we suffered a tragic loss, for example, that's not our fault. We didn't do anything to deserve that. But the lesson in that may have opened my eyes to what really does matter in life and what I should be investing in and who really does matter to me, what my values really are. Sometimes big tragedies that shake us to our core like this let us see very clearly who and what is good for us and who and what isn't good for us and what aligns with our values and what doesn't. And that might be having better boundaries. That might be not settling for less than what we deserve anymore. Expecting reciprocal, equal give and take dynamics in our lives from workplaces, from people, in relationships. So we're actually becoming a new person. We're allowing the experience to shape us, to grow us, to shape our character. So if we've been a victim of poor behavior from someone who's lied to us, been dishonest, been disloyal, this is an opportunity for us to look at that behavior and say to ourselves, I don't want to ever be like that. I never want to inflict this sort of pain on someone else. And to really step forward as a person of high integrity, as a person who shows loyalty, honesty, authenticity, who communicates openly, with transparency. These experiences all can shape who we are, can create a better version of ourselves, can develop our character. We don't have to pass the pain on to other people just because we've been subjected to something. We can use any experience as an opportunity to better ourselves, to grow. And then the final step is integration. It's about embodying that, moving forward in life as a representation of someone who has integrated that experience, who has learnt from it, who has let themselves be shaped by it. And then we can channel it into other things. We can channel it into our art. We can channel it into creative projects. We can share our wisdom to help other people suffer a bit less in life. We can use that experience as medicine for other people. When we take the pain and suffering and we transform it into something that helps people, that's true alchemy in my opinion. So I really hope this has helped someone. I love you. Bye.